What we observe about the dimensions of the universe is more closely related to music and sound waves than anything else. From your very body to distant planets, all are symphonies of sound waves. Therefore, if you choose to perceive reality like waves in music, we can easily visualize other dimensions. Is this how we open the door to traveling to other dimensions? A piano has 8 white keys from one C note to the next, forming a very familiar octave. And it was those 5 black notes that created all the sharps. Those sharps are called a scale, which consists of a total of 13 musical notes. Therefore, from the first C note to the next C note, one must go through a full 13 steps, not just 8. We are all familiar with the shape of a sine wave. It corresponds to light, the spectrum of optical refraction, and the intensity of sound. We are already quite familiar with these types of charts. In the entire physical world, every simple dimension is formed based on generative wavelengths, except for the void and perhaps even the soul. The characteristic that distinguishes each sound is its wavelength. A sound wave emitted from any point on the curve will propagate and envelop the entire curve. Like traveling from point A to point B on a long wavelength, or from point C to point D on a short wavelength. When the wavelength is sufficiently long, it will appear almost as a straight line. Quantum physics and quantum mechanics approach reality in one of 2 distinct ways. They don't understand why one cannot look in 2 different directions at once, and geometry will answer all those questions if you truly devote yourself to understanding it. You can think of a book as just any ordinary object. Books exist in an incredibly small, humble form. For example, the atom, or you can set that notion aside and envision all things as particles, waves, or even sound if you wish. If you view all things from an atomic perspective, you will see the operating principles that fit that model. If you consider everything as sound waves, you might also notice that natural laws fit that pattern. In themselves, the spatial dimensions are fundamentally no different, the only distinction lies in the wavelength. It's like a television or radio. When you change the channel, you are selecting a different wavelength, causing a new image to appear on the screen or a new sound to emerge from the radio. That is exactly like existing in completely different dimensions. If we adjust the wavelength of consciousness and shift the entire body's state to a different vibrational frequency in the universe, you will instantly vanish from this world and appear right at the place you have chosen. That is exactly what unidentified flying objects, UFOs, do when you see them in the sky. They appeared at an astonishing speed, abruptly changed direction by 90 degrees, and then vanished completely. The people on those ships do not pilot the spacecraft in the way we typically do with airplanes. The astronauts were completely at one with the spacecraft through a powerful, shared consciousness. And when ready to transition to another world, they will meditate to merge into a single, unified consciousness. At that moment, they will execute a 90-degree shift in consciousness to transfer the entire spacecraft and its crew to another dimension. This universe, including all stars and atoms, is formed based on the wavelength of 7.23 centimeters. From a spiritual perspective, this wavelength is called the Om sound. Every existing entity in the universe emits a distinct sound, based on its very structure. Each element contributes to creating a unified and harmonious sound. The average sound of all objects in this 3rd dimension has a wavelength of 7.23 centimeters, and that is the fundamental sound of this dimension. This wavelength is also equal to the distance between your eyes, measured from the center of one pupil to the center of the other. If you take the average of any 100 people, you will obtain the precise measurement of the distance from the chin to the bridge of the nose, the distance between the 2 palms, and the distance between the chakras. The wavelength of 7.23 also precisely reflects the distance between points in the human body and between all things in the universe. Bell Laboratories is actually the one that discovered this wavelength, not some psychic sitting still in a meditative state. Bell Laboratories selected a frequency with a wavelength slightly longer than 7 centimeters. To this day, the reason they arrived at that particular wavelength remains a mystery. Initially, they believed it originated from deep within the Earth. But when humans discovered that electric charge existed all around them and tried to observe every device within sight, they looked up at the sky and uttered in utter amazement, "Oh no, they're closing in from all sides." Based on the reasons presented, it can be confirmed that 7.23 centimeters is the wavelength of this universe, a 3 million space universe. As one ascends to higher spatial planes, the wavelength becomes progressively shorter and the energy grows purer. As one descends into lower spatial regimes, the wavelength becomes longer and the energy grows increasingly chaotic. In the universe we inhabit, space has vast limits, yet there exists a special wavelength capable of connecting all things. Every civilization in the universe holds this fundamental knowledge, and they know how to travel between different dimensions. It is just that we have forgotten everything, but through the concept of God, we will eventually remember. For a long time, musicians, musicologists, and even physicists have discovered that a gap always exists between harmonious musical notes. Between each note in the musical scale, there exist 12 pitches. Interestingly, a group of musicians in California discovered that, in reality, this number can actually exceed 200 microtones between two notes. If each note in the musical scale is considered a circle, then there are a total of 13 circles. Each circle represents a white or black key, and the light-colored circle at the end is the 13th note, marking the beginning of a new octave. This black circle symbolizes the third dimension, the very universe we inhabit, while the fourth circle represents the fourth dimension. Between two consecutive musical notes or between two adjacent spatial dimensions, there always exist 12 primary tonal levels. This is essentially a three-dimensional image. If you delve deeper, you will realize that within each gradation of sound, 12 other gradations exist, together painting a complete picture. It simply moves forward and then backward, repeating this cycle endlessly. In geometry, this process is called a progression, and it exists only in the negative life. If you continue to delve deeper, you'll realize that musicians have discovered ways to create entirely different musical experiences. This is precisely how we open up new universes of sound. You've probably heard many people mention the 144 dimensions of space. So why does this number 144 have such a profound connection to so many spiritual topics? That is because an octave contains 12 notes, and between these notes there are 12 pitches, meaning there are 12 multiplied by 12, or 144 spatial dimensions within each octave. Specifically, each octave consists of 12 primary notes, corresponding to 12 primary spatial dimensions, and 132 secondary notes, corresponding to 132 minor spatial dimensions. The 13th note is a repetition of the first note, marking the starting point of a new octave. Accordingly, there will always exist one octave below and one octave above. Therefore, within the vastness and infinity of the universe, there remain countless ways to express a single reality. Each dimension offers a completely distinct experience, unlike any other. And that reminds us that we are present here, right on this earth, in three-dimensional space, in order to advance to the fourth dimension and beyond. An intriguing secret about the third dimension is that we cease to exist here after leaving our physical bodies. The truth is we can only be conscious of this spatial dimension for a very brief period. First, we will delve into the main layer of the fourth dimension. The majority of inhabitants in the higher dimensions are observing and supporting humanity. They currently believe that humans on Earth will very quickly evolve to enter these higher dimensions. The white wall is located about halfway down Alley 8. Between the notes of the universe, in its spaces or registers, we cannot find anything existing within. Each such empty layer of space is called the void. The Egyptians called it duat, while the Tibetans called it bardo. Each time you traverse a spatial dimension or a musical register to advance to the next level, you must pass through an intermediate void or a zone of darkness. This central void is darker than other voids, with the darkest portion lying precisely at the midpoint of the octave. It possesses a superior strength compared to other forms of void existing within. It should be understood that, with our current vocabulary, we cannot fully articulate the meaning of this concept. The void exists between the octaves, also known as the Great Nothingness or the Great Wall. It is like a barrier that one must cross to advance into a higher octave. The Eternal Emperor was placed within this void for a specific purpose that we will soon come to understand. All dimensions are interwoven, and every point in the space-time continuum contains all secrets. We are living in an immensely sacred and authentic space right here on Earth. This is a place that allows us to easily perceive vast dimensions, karmic forces, and yin essence, while also being home to sacred sites. In essence, this is the very connection point between Earth and Heaven. Truly, this is a special space that binds all things together. Sometimes, people see these places as gateways to the stars, opening a path to other dimensions. But in truth, you can travel anywhere from any location. Your current position no longer matters if you truly understand the dimensions. And of course, one cannot do without the power of a noble love. The Vesica Pisces statue. This sacred statue is shaped based on two concentric circles intersecting at their midpoints. The overlapping area between the two circles is known as the Vesica Piscis. It is one of the most significant symbols representing all relationships in the universe. You may have noticed these circles in the ancient tombs of Ai-Cub. They are also known as the wheels of the Ai-Cub people. Even the most renowned scholars of Ai-Cub antiquity cannot clearly explain their true meaning. Yet, this very fact serves as compelling evidence that the Ai-Cub people recognized the flower of life not merely as an ornate decorative symbol, but as something harboring far deeper layers of significance. To truly understand the position of the wheel within the flower of life, you must delve into the profound layers of knowledge concealed within it. Merely focusing on the external symbols is never sufficient to grasp its true meaning. To see the complete picture, you must comprehend the ancient secrets that have always been intrinsically linked to the flower of life. Observing this image, we can see a total of 8 wheels. On the front right side are 7 characters with animal heads. They are known as the guardian deities. Each deity is holding a red, oval-shaped object in their hands, called the fruit of transformation. The gods become intensely focused at the moment of rebirth. It is an extremely rapid physical transformation to convert into a completely different life form. They preserved the image of a transition as they approached the line. When the line reached its endpoint, it bent at a 90-degree angle upward, and thus they had moved away from their original position by exactly the dimensions of a garden. They performed a 90-degree shift and adjusted the wavelength. Their wheels were now synchronized with the musical notes. As mentioned before, it is these very notes that serve as the bridge to different dimensions. Since these deities created a turning point in the way we think about transformation and rebirth, perhaps this wheel is the clearest evidence of the places they once set foot and the spaces they once inhabited. It seems that doorways to other worlds are appearing everywhere. This makes everything incredibly convenient. You don't need to go far to search. Just know how to open that door, and you will immediately step into a new, more elevated space. So, what do you think of this Ai-Cub individual's time machine? Is time travel still just a far-fetched idea, or not? Share your thoughts with the primordial universe in the comments section below. Well, now it's time for me, Kwong, to say goodbye for now. See you all in the upcoming videos.